It had been 6 weeks since I'd returned to my small hometown in Oregon, a place I once couldn't wait to leave. The city had chewed me up and spit me out, heartbroken, jobless, and unsure of what I was even supposed to do next. So I packed what I could and came home to reset. My parents welcomed me without question, but it was my little brother Liam who surprised me the most. He was only 14, lanky, all arms and legs and full of energy. I hadn't spent this much time with him in years. He'd knock gently on my door every evening, asking if I wanted to play cards or go for a walk. Sometimes I said yes, mostly I didn't. He didn't stop trying. I didn't realize it at first, but Liam was watching me closely. He'd always been observant for his age, and I guess he noticed how often I stared at nothing, or how I avoided looking at my phone, dreading any contact from my ex. One Thursday afternoon while walking our dog Milo, I saw him again, Ethan. He was coming out of his gate just a few houses down. Tall, quiet, calm. I'd seen him a couple of times before but never talked to him. He nodded and gave me a polite smile, the kind that made you feel noticed but not exposed. I nodded back and kept walking. Milo, of course, took that moment to sprint toward Ethan's yard, sniffing wildly like we were on some urgent mission. I apologized while tugging the leash and Ethan chuckled, offering Milo a scratch behind the ears. That night at dinner I didn't mention the encounter, but Liam did. "You like that guy, huh?" he asked casually. My mom raised an eyebrow. I gave him a warning glance and he backed off, temporarily. The next day, Liam borrowed a hammer from the garage, told me he needed to fix the shed, and disappeared for half an hour. I found out later he'd gone to Ethan's house to ask for help with a loose board on the fence. Ethan came over that evening with his toolbox. I was stunned when I saw him at our door. I nearly tripped over Milo trying to reach for the doorknob. Ethan smiled. "Your brother said you needed help." I wanted to be mad at Liam, but I couldn't find a reason. Ethan was kind, efficient, and easy to talk to. We stood there awkwardly, me pretending to supervise, while Liam grinned silently in the background like some kind of matchmaker in training. After Ethan left, Liam asked, "So, you're welcome?" I rolled my eyes, but my chest felt lighter. I hadn't smiled like that in weeks. It was subtle, the way he made me feel normal again, like myself before everything had gone sideways. I didn't know what Liam was planning, but for the first time in a while I didn't feel like stopping him. Over the next few days Ethan kept showing up, always with a reason. A borrowed wrench. A question about the fence. An extra bag of dog treats he accidentally bought. I knew Liam was behind it. He'd disappear just long enough for Ethan to arrive, and then somehow reappear at just the right moment to leave us alone. I didn't confront him because I didn't want him to stop. As strange as it was, I found myself looking forward to those short, quiet moments with Ethan. He wasn't overly charming or trying too hard. He asked questions, listened, and shared just enough about himself to make me curious. I learned he worked remotely for a software company and had moved back to care for his dad after surgery. I asked if it was hard adjusting, and he said it was easier than being lonely in a city full of people. That answer stuck with me. I knew exactly what he meant. Liam's schemes got more creative. One Saturday morning he invited Ethan to our backyard cookout without telling me. Ethan showed up with a 6-pack of soda and a container of homemade potato salad. My mom was thrilled. I was caught off guard but tried not to show it. We ended up talking for an hour while Liam played soccer with his friends. I found myself laughing again, telling Ethan about my high school art teacher and her obsession with antique teacups. He listened like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever heard. The real turning point came when Liam faked a stomach bug. He groaned on the couch, asking me to grab ginger ale and crackers. When I got to the store I ran into Ethan in the parking lot. He offered to help carry the groceries back and I said yes without hesitation. On the drive home it started raining and we ended up sitting in the car after pulling into the driveway, neither of us moving. He told me about his mom passing away 3 years ago, how he and his dad grew close during that time, and how hard it had been to build a new routine without her. I told him about my ex. How the relationship ended with more silence than shouting, and how I didn't know who I was without that version of love. There was a long pause, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just honest. He looked over and said, "You don't seem lost to me." I looked away, unsure how to respond. It wasn't a line. It didn't feel rehearsed. Felt like he meant it. That night, Liam didn't ask questions. He just handed me a pack of my favorite gum and said, "I think he likes you." Just saying. I didn't answer. But I kept the gum in my jacket pocket and fell asleep with the kind of quiet hope I hadn't felt in a long time. A few days later I walked past Liam's room and heard him talking to someone. I paused when I heard my name. "She won't admit it, but she likes you," he said, his voice low. "She's just scared." My stomach tightened. I didn't need to hear more. I stepped away quietly, but the damage was done. Embarrassment burned through me. I felt exposed, like my little brother had handed over pages of a diary I never wrote. That evening I confronted Liam. My tone was sharper than I intended. "You need to stop interfering in my life," I said. He looked stunned, like he'd just been slapped. "I was trying to help," he mumbled, but I cut him off. "This isn't a game. You're a kid, Liam. Stay out of it." He didn't argue. He just nodded and walked away. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. I avoided Ethan for the next few days. I didn't text back when he checked in. I skipped our usual walks and left the porch light off, hoping he'd take the hint. I told myself it was better this way, simpler. That getting close to anyone again would only lead to disappointment. But I missed our conversations more than I wanted to admit. I missed the way he made the air feel easier to breathe. One morning I found a note slipped into the mailbox. It was from Ethan. Handwritten. Simple. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I've enjoyed getting to know you. If this isn't what you want, I understand. Take care of yourself." I read it twice, then a third time. There was no pressure, no guilt. Just understanding. And somehow that made it worse. Liam barely spoke to me that week. He left for school without saying goodbye, ate dinner in silence, and spent most evenings in his room. I realized I'd hurt him more than I thought. For all his awkward efforts and schemes, he'd only wanted to see me happy again. And I'd shut him down for it. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, I sat on the living room floor sorting through old photo boxes. I found one from a beach trip. Me and Liam building a sandcastle, him grinning with missing teeth, me with sunscreen on my nose and no worries in the world. My chest ached. That little boy had grown up watching me struggle and still believed I deserved something good. I drove to Ethan's place without calling. He opened the door looking surprised but not upset. I told him everything, how hearing Liam talk to him made me feel vulnerable, how I panicked, how it had nothing to do with him. I told him I was scared of starting over, scared of letting someone in again, scared of being wrong. Ethan didn't try to fix it. He just listened. When I was done, he said, "You don't have to know everything right now. We can figure it out slowly." And for the first time I wanted to try. Not because I needed someone to fix me, but because I was finally willing to stop running. The next few weeks felt different. Not dramatic or filled with declarations, just real. Ethan and I started spending time together again, but with no expectations. We talked about ordinary things. Recipes that went wrong, childhood fears, how the town had changed while we were away. Every conversation built something steady between us. Something I hadn't realized I craved. There were no sweeping gestures, just small moments that made me feel safe. Liam slowly warmed back up to me. It started with short replies to my questions, then evolved into casual banter. One night, I knocked on his door with a bowl of popcorn and asked if he wanted to watch a movie. He didn't say yes, but he followed me to the couch. Halfway through the movie, he looked over and said, "I still think you needed help. And I'd do it again." I smiled. "I know. And I'm sorry." He shrugged like it wasn't a big deal, but I knew it was. Ethan continued to show up in small ways. When my car battery died, he didn't wait for me to ask, he just came over with cables. When he made too much soup, he brought me a container. It wasn't about fixing problems. It was about showing care, showing up, being consistent. I started to realize that love didn't have to arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it came in silence, in showing up without being asked, in letting someone be themselves without trying to change them. One evening we sat on my porch watching the sky darken. I told him I wasn't sure where I was going yet, career-wise or even emotionally. He nodded and said, "Me neither." And somehow that was enough. Neither of us had the answers, but we weren't pretending to. We were just there figuring it out together. Liam, ever the observer, caught me staring at my phone one day and said, "You like him? You actually like him?" I didn't argue. I just laughed and admitted it. "Yeah, I do." He grinned, triumphant. "Told you." That was his victory moment, and I let him have it. I wasn't in love, not yet. But I was healing. I was starting to trust someone new, and more importantly, I was learning to trust myself again. Ethan didn't ask for anything I wasn't ready to give. He didn't rush me. That patience gave me the space to believe that maybe, just maybe, not all stories had to end the way my last one did. One morning I found a note from Liam taped to the fridge. It said, "Happy looks good on you. Keep going." It was written in messy handwriting with a small heart drawn beside it. I didn't cry, but I came close. That night, as Ethan and I sat on the porch again, I realized something. Love doesn't always need to start with lightning. Sometimes it begins quietly, with a little brother who refused to give up, and with someone who listened when you finally spoke. That was enough for me to believe in something again.